Welcome, everyone. Good boy, Tucker. This is learning at its most fun.
Okay. Hello and welcome. We're just going to start by introducing our wonderful panelists. So hello, my name is Jack, and I am our senior subject matter expert and external trainer here at Redtail, and I am incredibly excited and lucky to introduce you to the three women joining us today for our Redtail Power User panel. Let's start with Miss Moren Wiy. Will you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself? And thank you so much for being here.
Sure. Thank you and welcome, everyone. Very excited to be here. Where I think what we have is a really great blend here for the panel that Jax has brought together. And what I do is really create the how-to, the content for those automations that fit into the processes. So it's not just you should have an automated calendar, but here's how you fill it with the content and here's how you structure it. I have sample calendars. I know lots of the Redtail RIAs and advisors have used it throughout the last year or two, but that's really it. It's the steps on how to have a system for acquiring clients through referrals from COIs and your current clients. And then really just that content. That's the Connected Advisors, about connecting you with your clients with the right content.
Excellent. Moren, thank you so much again for being here today. For those of you who have not had a chance to see Moren in a practice management takeover, she's been in a number here at Redtail, and she's lent so much valuable information to connecting the CRM processes with your internal office processes. So thank you for being here, Moren. Next, we'll go to Miss Katherine Beltran. And Katherine, thank you so much for coming back. We just can't live without you over here, apparently.
Thanks for having me back. But everyone, I'm Katherine Beltran. I'm the manager of strategy and implementation at Simplicity Ops. That's a fancy way to say, hey, I really love creating organization and processes to make your day-to-day lives as efficient as possible. So I really geek out when it comes to templates and really figuring out how we can take your process, meld it with mine, and make it as streamlined as possible. So I get really excited when we talk about tasks, workflows, which I'm sure we'll spend quite a bit on today.
Absolutely, Katherine. Thank you again. And last but certainly not least, we have Miss Jennifer Goldman. And Miss Jen, will you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Thanks, Jack. So I'm so psyched to be here with other women. This is pivotal for me. Been in the industry for well over 25 years and founder of my virtual COO. And our business is slightly different than it was years ago. We're now working with businesses to increase health and make them either scalable or saleable. So basically we get involved in all things from systems, team skills, capacity, financials, and improvements across the board.
Excellent. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you ladies so much for introducing yourself. Let's go ahead and jump into our topics for the day. So we already are getting a little slew of questions into our QA, but I want to give you all an opportunity to submit them. So if you did come prepared today with some task management related questions, please feel free to plug those into the QA now. But we can go ahead and start with some that came from our type form or from the survey that we asked all of our registrants to submit their questions to. So we'll go ahead and start with just a nice and easy one. Moren, how do you prefer to track work in the CRM, or what's your preferred method?
So did you say Moren?
Oh, yes. I'm so sorry, Moren.
No, sorry, Jax. You know what, how I like to track it within the CRM is really making sure that what you've put in there, what the best content has to go in so that it's easy for you to track it. And that when you're with your clients, you're looking at, okay, these are the quick notes from my last meeting, or these are the notes that I had from 3 meetings ago. Don't put too much content in there, because that I often see is even within the tasks and within the activities and within the CRM, way too much content. Have short notes, and the whole team, whether you've got 3 advisors, 1 advisor, an assistant, everyone's using those short notes. That is a best practice for sure.
Maureen, that is honestly, that was not an answer I was expecting, but that was such a great answer to highlight. Yes, having clean information and making sure the data's clean and standardized going into the activity first, but then
Right.
also using the shorthand so that way you don't necessarily have to commit yourself to putting in all of the data. Oh my goodness, that's such a good tip. Do you oftentimes have that conversation with advisors when you speak with them about or activity efficiency or task efficiency?
Absolutely. And the reason that it always comes up is I'll see CRMs and the systems, even within Redtail, and they've got way too much content in there and they can't remember where they left off with their clients. So short notes across the board for the whole team. So if you're doing a communications calendar, you have a nice visual that shows them each quarter what you're doing and how you're going to automate that in the system. So you can send that calendar out to your clients and more importantly to your prospects, because we know that's one of the number one reasons that clients leave a financial team or financial advisor is lack of communication. So make sure they've got a visual of your calendar and keep it clean, keep it short.
Thank you, Maureen. Oh, keep it clean, keep it short. I think we're gonna have to get t-shirts made with that. That's the new sticker at Redtail. I like that. Katherine, so we're starting to get more of those questions in the QA. I'm gonna jump to one of these. I know
Sure.
RMDs is a hot topic across,
Mhm.
well, every RTU I go to. So Kay asked, and it's Kay Williams, how do large companies keep track of RMDs, especially when clients take them partially throughout the year? Those activities, I use activities for each client, but there must be an easier way to do this other than an Excel doc. Yes, there is, absolutely. And then Kay said, those make my eyes cross. I'm sorry, Kay, we're gonna prevent that today. Katherine,
First of all, yeah. Hi, Kay. I'm like, long time no see. I feel like you were always on like every webinar ever. So it's good to see you back. But with RMDs, I kind of have a love-hate with it within the CRM, I'll be honest, Jackie. And it's really because your custodian's still going to be that source of truth with it. But when it comes to really those details of what has been taken, what's still outstanding, how do I stay on top of it? How do I not forget it? You're sometimes going to want to use a combination of tools. And this is going to be one of those instances where you want to have a combination because you're really trying to keep track of two items. What's really that value associated with it? And when do we really need to check in again with it? So you can have those recurring activities, whether it's a contact specific one where it's, hey, you have to double check on this one, or if it's more database wide, hey, run this report and you have it once a month, you could do it in one of those fashions. But the one thing I think that you're going to find really missing in this scenario that you have is that there's no user defined fields in play. User defined fields are one of my absolute favorite tools within the CRM just because it's where you get to become a developer. Anything that you are incredibly just wishing, dreaming you could have as a field is where user defined fields come in. So whether it's trying to keep track of how much was already taken, how much is expected to take certain months, how much is a lump sum, whatever that value is, you can have it where it's RMD amount, user defined field, and then again, just when it's supposed to be taken as another field or the same. Either way, it's now reportable, which is where that repeating activity comes into play, where you can say, hey, let's check in on this information. I'm going to put a little asterisk though, because again, you still want to reference your actual custodial site to make sure that the amount is in fact accurate for that case. But I'd use a combination, use a recurring activity and a user defined field to help with that information.
ooh, so it's a tag team, user
Tag
defined
team.
activity.
Yep. 2-for-1 special.
You know, and I'll say, Katherine, based on the conversations I've had with advisors, it does seem to get more and more common to use that activity in conjunction with the RMD with the user defined field. Sorry, that was an interconnected sentence. But I'm curious, do you notice that they're using a standardized template for their RMDs? Do they include a chart in the description or anything to help them track details within the activity, or is it just the activity for reporting purposes?
More so the latter on this case. I'm going to take a step back just a little bit here because I do find the description is going to be one of your best friends for pretty much any activity. Descriptions, the way I can always describe it for anyone, because I'll always get that question, when do I use descriptions? When's the linked note? Do I have to use them? And it's like, you don't have to, but I'd highly, highly, highly encourage, which to me means you have to use it. Descriptions really where it's like your internal notes. Anything that's going to help your future self, store it in that description. Link notes is where that compliance aspect comes into play, but descriptions where it becomes my second brain. So if there's something where it's like, hey, remember to do this the next time you talk with them, or hey, remember to do this the next time you have to file this, those live in that task. So when you have to look back on it, in 6 months. You're not sitting there going, what am I doing? What's supposed to be happening? Who's on first? You have everything in front of you. So anytime you can use it, and that's going to come with a regular one-off activity, or hint, we'll get to it, I'm sure, task templates. Anytime you're going to build out like a task template for yourself, or I mean activities in general, but tasks is usually where I use them, put in those kind of like prompt questions. So that way it's the same type of answers you get every time, especially if you're going to take that task and hand it off to someone else. You're now avoiding either a Slack or Teams message as well as an email. They have everything they need right in front of them. You've now just saved yourself how much in several times and how much confusion.
Thank you, Catherine.
Yeah.
No, those
I
are,
know, I just went on a tangent.
it's definitely a lot to potentially digest though. So I kind of, Jen, would you mind maybe while we're early on in talking about all these different potential processes that you could use to fix or make your CRM more efficient, I do think it'd be a good reminder, what is the best way that we can maybe prime people for new processes or easily kind of integrate, the team into new processes to maybe prevent some of those bottlenecks in the future, or maybe even just prevent buy-in?
Absolutely. So this is a big one for us because everything we do in essence is a process. Most things are repeatable actions in some way, shape, or form. So we have a couple different tricks that we made up for ourselves and then we use with clients. And one is that when you have a team meeting, you actually want to take a look at the workflow report and see what's bottlenecking, but you don't want to do it from an essence of big brother or sister, like, why didn't you get it done? You want to look for a pattern of bottlenecking, right? So that opens the door to everyone kind of team discussing what can we do to avoid this bottleneck in the future? And that might be reassignment of a particular task in a process or something else that's holding up. So that's one. And the other thing is we encourage everyone to learn. We have a little mantra, and Catherine knows this. It's called IDEOS. And so every time we look and we talk about an area of the business where we're repeating something over and over again, we're always looking for ways to integrate, to delegate, to eliminate, or to outsource, or to actually staff differently. So we throw that IDEOS mantra into the team meeting and we kind of instill it in everyone to think in terms of process and then how to improve for the better of the team. So those are like our two little tricks. And in terms of buy-in, the reality is if you talk about it as a team and you start to produce wins, right? Like this will save time, this will save money, this will save headaches, everybody's bought in. You're golden.
Wow. I mean, we talk about buy-in a lot here, and Jen, that's part of the reason why I just think you're amazing, because you just make it sound so easy. And truthfully, I mean, from your perspective, you've built a business around this. You've seen it work, right? So it's not that this is a formula that doesn't work. So do you see that for the majority of offices that you work with, this is a formula that you can apply? So it is.
Yeah, it is. And it's only because, first of all, we're individualization. So the idea is kind of if you put it front and center, it kind of soaks into people's brains without this fear. Because I think, and I would love to hear what the other women say, sometimes when you work on processes, people start to wonder where their value is going. So when you work to streamline a certain process, the internal reaction is, you just cut out some of the work I was doing, and I thought I was valued based on doing that work.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're anti-process. We're just, it's normal that we react that way to kind of protect what we were doing and what we valued. So to be fair, when we do process work, we also do role responsibility work at the same time.
I like that, running them in tandem with each other. So that way they work together. Hopefully everybody grows together too. No, that's amazing. Thank you, Jen. And I saw Austin put this in the chat, so I'm sorry, everyone in the QA for a second. What does the E in IDEO stand for?
Eliminate. So
Eliminate.
either eliminate, I like this one. Eliminate means you'll never do it again, or eliminate can mean automation. So using like those red, the red tail automations that you have, or maybe it's an outside automation.
Excellent. Well, speaking of automations, let's bounce back to Miss Moren because Julie asked a quick question. Maureen, when you mean short notes, are you referring to putting them in the activity description or in the linked notes section?
I think in everything you do, you should be thinking about it really goes back to what Jen just said. You want to have it so that it's clean notes, it's easy to read, anyone on the team can have it. And Jen, what I really like that you just said is you talk about, get the buy-in of everybody to what are things we can eliminate? What can we streamline? How can we do this better? And then what's the opportunity for you? Because we can take that off your plate so you can do these other areas. And without a doubt, I just saw a study, and from one of the recent industry conferences, everyone needs to do more time around client acquisition. It's a very low number compared to where it should be at compared to other industries. We want to have it at 30%. So what Jen was just saying and what Katherine said, that frees up everyone on the team to help be thinking about how can we improve it. It should be 30% at least of the time for the whole team. And how can we acquire new clients? What's our system? What's our process? That's almost 90% of what I work with financial advisors. But if everyone's so busy over here, they can't do that. So that is, I think, really, really important. And so clean notes means you can everyone at a glance see it. I use the system of Toro. What was the topic you last discussed with your client? What was the opportunity? What result do you want from it? And what's your action step? And it's just 4 quick bullets after you have a meeting with a client or a prospect.
That would be an easy thing to put in a note template. So then, yeah, you could just go in, put the linked note in, select the template, then you have, I love things that make it so you don't have to think. It's so nice because that brain power could be used literally anywhere else. Learn a new skill, crochet, play the ukulele, do something with your time, or fill it with more work, your prerogative. Okay, on that topic, Maureen, I do have a question from you back on tasks. So Jen asked, how do I keep tasks from falling off the calendar? And I know Jen may be talking about literally, but I'm curious about what strategies, maybe outside the CRM, you apply to keeping tasks from falling off of your radar.
So one of the things with keeping tasks from falling off the radar, some things are going to fall off. The perfect world is they don't, but just being honest, it just happens. But if you always make sure you're focused 80-20, the 80% of your business comes from the 20% of your clients. You just know that 80-20, you make sure those clients, nothing falls through the cracks. The next tier, you want to keep it streamlined, and there is just going to be a few things that do fall through. But what I like to do is I keep it in the task management, but also it might be just with those top clients. Here's the 3 things we're going to make sure we're doing with them. It could be something. I don't like to use spreadsheets. I don't like to use anything outside of the system, but you may need just something for some of those tasks that do seem to fall through. And if they're falling through and they don't seem important, step back and go back to what Jen said. It might be they're not even important to do. Sometimes we prioritize things that really don't align to bringing in new clients, increasing our wallet share, or working with our centers of influence to bring in new clients.
I love that. Because yes, you're completely correct. Before you even go into the system to check, you should prioritize what is your time best spent on.
Right.
Absolutely. And I think it can definitely get lost in the shuffle, especially in the madness that can be the CRM, especially if it's not organized. But that's why we're here. So bouncing, Jen, I was kind of wondering, can you feed off of the same kind of idea of what methods you use to keep important pieces of information off of your calendar? I mean, on your calendor from falling off your calendar.
I'd love to take it off my calendar. Yeah. And I want to hear Katherine, because I know she does some workflows. I document everything. And I got to tell you, I'm the oldest of the bunch here. I believe, or at least mentally. And if you don't, that's going to catch up with you. So for me, keeping it on the calendar is for me keeping it in the task list and just keeping it organized. So I happen to organize everything by department. So I don't care if it's a 5-person company or a 75-person or 100. All tasks, whether client facing, sales facing, finance, whatever it is, I link it up to the department record. And that's how I keep everything there. And then we decipher between simmering and action. So some things are set for simmer to just think about. They're not actually actionable yet. And that we just put that in the subject line. And then other things are literally, let's get it done. So they don't have a word like simmer in there. And that's how we just keep everything that way. So I'll be honest, you got to be a good typer or a dictation person. But let me hand it over to Katherine, because I know you do a lot with workflows. So maybe you can play on this too.
Yeah, Catherine, can you roll it up for us? And 'cause these things
Yeah.
obviously have these are extremely great process management, but what would you do inside the system?
Yeah. So as far as when it comes to really your activities, it's going to come down to a couple of what I'd consider best practices to approaching your day. The first few minutes I spend every single morning is actually going into my past due activities and rolling those over. I'm gonna put Curtis back on the hot shelf. Years ago, he used to always insist that there was a post-it note on his desk and it flew off. It meant he no longer had to work about it. That's not my theory. We have to always worry about things. So we can't leave it in the past. If you leave it in the past, you're going to forget about it. So if you roll it over, it brings it back onto today's schedule. But then there's even these little hidden gems within those activities that I can guarantee 90% of the people on this call do not use. And it's the importance in the priority field. And it's sometimes just more of a like, I don't know how to approach it. There's too many options. How do I best sort this out? So I'll kind of keep it short and simple here. So you have the like low, normal, and high. For a high priority item, that means it's something I got to get done like ASAP. It should have been done yesterday. So for something like that, I'll put a high 1. I shouldn't have 30 high 1s. That's just not realistic. If I'm thinking about my day and I have 30 high 1s, I clearly either A, need to hire someone else, or B, I need to hire several people more. That means I have way more than I can control. Then you have what I'd call a normal 2. A normal 2 is when you get to it. After you've got those high 1s off your plate, those are the next up on the list. For low 6, those are kind of my ongoing, what Jen kind of called like the simmering. These are the nice to haves. I'll get to it when I have the moment. These are kind of like the long-term projects. They tend to be more internal. So it could be something along the lines of like, hey, let's update our color fonts, or hey, let's update this. It's extremely valuable, but not your highest usage of time. So again, if it even just helps, use those high 1s, normal 2s, low 6, that'll help kind of control your day instead of your day controlling you. I'm going to also reiterate one other piece. Again, Jen kind of hinted on it, Moren kind of hinted on it. Every single task, activity, event, workflow, whatever it is in your database should be linked to a contact. At the end of the day, you're building everything you've done, that history. And if you don't have it linked to someone, here's a hint, it's just going to go the way of the dodo. It's going to be a lot harder to find. So I would highly, highly, highly encourage, whether it's your client, your prospect, a vendor, or even internal, link it to your own business record. We all have processes we like to update that don't affect one client, affects all of them. That's where your own business record is going to come into play. So if you can remember some of those things, losing those items that you come to have in your database most likely will not occur.
Thank you, Catherine. Sorry, I last minute decided that I'm a visual learner and other people do too. So I just popped in to demonstrate some of the things that Catherine was discussing, like using the priority numbers in your activities, as well as the last thing was showing you how to roll over your activities. Just make sure you select them first over on the left-hand side. You don't have to select all of them, but oh, I'm so sorry. It's in the activities dashboard now. I know, right? I love when things are 1-2 switcheroos, but hey. So as soon as I get some activities here, when we hit activity options, you'll be able to roll them over, like Catherine said, to the next business day.
Or you could reschedule them if it's something where you're like,
too.
Catherine of yesterday had high hopes, but Catherine of today knows she's not getting it till Friday. You could
I love Jackie of yesterday. That's my favorite. But anyway, let's get back to some of these questions. I know we have a lot coming in. Okay, our next question, Catherine, I actually wanted to jump on this one because it is about client reviews.
Sure.
Okay. Or actually, I'm so sorry. Sarah asked, I'm looking to track 401k plan sponsors to evaluate which are easy to initiate rollovers. Generally, how rollovers are processed, direct deposit versus check custodian versus check to only to participant, general timelines, maybe individual contacts for each plan sponsor. I think Sarah might be looking for different ways that she could tackle this. So how might you recommend that she tackle something like this, whether it's 401k or maybe different plan or just a different product?
So we normally put them in as different contexts and then use your status and category to your benefits. So it could be something more along the lines of like professional network plan sponsor, or if you view them as a client plan sponsor. That way you have it where it's actually still searchable and reportable, but then you're going to also want to use those keywords to help with those kind of quick identifiers. Yes, we could do this with this. And then again, memberships is going to be something that's hidden in the background, but link those contacts together. Remember, memberships are any contacts that you want to connect one to another, whether it's a client to a business to another business, a prospect to a business, an employee to employer. That's where it's really going to come into place. So you're not sitting there going, who in the world are these all connected to, without you having to like type it into a note or create a user defined field or use it in import information. No, just link up the contacts together. You have the history, especially if you're on that plan sponsor page, you have everyone who's going to be that participant linked up. So I find that easier personally.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Catherine.
Great advice.
And once again, just bouncing in here to show you all, do some demonstration. Now we haven't quite moved on to workflows yet. There are a couple more process-based questions. Well, actually, we could probably merge it right into workflows because it might become relevant to just discuss these as more of a process. And then Maureen, we can start talking about some of those automations. Okay, so Laura asked, Laura asked a very, very in-depth question. How can we, or potentially, are there any better ways to connect a contact to an activity or to a workflow? Or what's your suggested method to connect a contact to a process? Okay, good job, Laura.
Hey, Catherine, you can answer that. I think there's only one way, right? I mean,
In terms of linking them up, so
Yeah, would you recommend any other processes, like linking it with a hyperlink or just to make it more accessible?
So a couple of things here. So when it comes to linking like contacts to things within CRM, definitely link them, whether it's to an activity, a workflow, opportunity, seminars if you're doing them. I think that's it. I think that's all of them that I can think of at the moment. But when it comes to what I consider like forms or reference documents, especially if you have something that lives on the cloud, whether it's like SharePoint or imaging or anything like that, there's always going to be that hyperlink that you can get. I do like to link those up within workflows and my activities. You get that little chain link usually within the description box. And it's just, again, so that way my future self has one less click to find that later on. I am one of those weird people that does legit count their clicks. And if it's over a certain amount and I sit there and go, there's no way I can. No. I'll try my best to get it backwards and get it where it's fewer. So if that's kind of what we're asking, I would use any kind of linking that we can to a kind of a cloud-based document. By all means, go for it. But when it comes to internally, like I said, activities, notes, I forgot about that one. Notes have to be linked to a contact though. Workflows, seminars, opportunities, all of them should be linked to a contact record.
Absolutely. And I know sometimes thinking outside the box on these things is a requirement just for whatever processes we may be running in our firm. So Maureen, let's bounce over to you because I know as far as automations go, I know that you have quite a few that you utilize and that you advertise. So I'm curious, what are some of your favorites?
So first of all, Catherine, I thought that was really great how you just pulled all that together and I hadn't heard someone say that they count their clicks and then they count back for how can I have less clicks? Because it's true, you don't realize how much time you're spending on things until you realize how many different steps you've put into it. And again, it goes back to embracing the whole team. I like to really put it out to the team. If it's a standalone advisor, then that's, just where are you spending your time? Should you be writing your own newsletter? Should you be doing your own editorial? I say no. That takes up a lot of time. That means you don't have time to be in front of clients. So that is one of the areas for automation is your communications. Red Tail has several great, what I would say, partners in this area. One, we know Stampy Cracking, we know FMG. One I'm very familiar with is FMX, just because they've brought me in for different opportunities. Their newsletters, their editorial, it can all be dropped in as well as an e-card. And it all goes back to your snapshot calendar. Here's when you can expect our newsletter at the start of each month. Here's when we do our quarterly market update. You could plug in there a birthday card, maybe an anniversary card. I see it where advisors send 12 cards a year. I say, don't do it. Make it so that card is special. It might be just one or two. Clients don't want to get 12 cards a year. We get excited and we think it's another touch point, but really what you want is that your touch points are really well done, and leverage some of these experts. They've got really top-notch financial writers and they usually do a compliance review. So that what you're getting is it'll either go right through your compliance department very well, and they've already previewed it. That will save you so much time. And they're not very expensive, and they really understand our industry. That's all they do. So to me, communications with clients and with prospects and automating those are one of the best things that you can do.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Maureen. Jen, bouncing back to you. So as far as like maintenance of, efficiency, automating your systems, or potentially even using that as a way to audit or your current processes, how might you go about something like that? Or how would you recommend that you tackle like an audit as a team?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first of all, I'd certainly run the standard reports. I'm sorry, when you think of audit, I think beyond the CRM, guys. So
Yeah,
just so you know, yeah. You know what? I think about it almost from a KPI standpoint, right? Like, what is the data that helps you make educated decisions? For example, we need to spend more time and focus on content, or more time on business development, or more time on the client experience. Whatever that KPI is, I think that's what drives your audit, because you'll be more interested in doing the audit. Because I don't know about any of you, but when I hear the word audit, I want to cower in a corner. So I guess the tackle is maybe start with like 2 or 3 major KPIs that you care about, that tell you a story about your business and the health, and then go look for the reports out of the systems. And of course, this could be, sorry, my voice keeps going, a recurring task with links like, hey, every quarter run this report, and it's a click. And as Katherine and Moren know, there's memorized reports inside the system that you can create. So then it's almost, you don't have to think about it, and you're leaving that brain power for looking at the data and making some decisions on it. So that's how I would tackle an audit.
Absolutely. And I'm curious, Jen, would you recommend writing that process down so everyone on the team can kind of see?
What do we think? Absolutely.
I
I'm all
know.
about. Yeah, no, seriously. You laugh, we all laugh, but I'm a crazy writer, and I'm a crazy writer with URLs. So if anybody knows, when I do it, it's always a task template. It's something that's always reoccurring. At the end of anything, it says trigger the next task, trigger the next workflow, and it has as many URL and Loom videos and clicks instructions inside. It's almost like a training manual, so that honestly,
Yeah.
if you don't love doing the audit, you can hand it to somebody else.
Yeah. Change the name. Don't call it audit. That's what I found.
Ooh,
Because the team gets a little bit nervous about that. What,
That's
wait,
right.
we're getting an audit. What's going on here?
Mhm.
So think about it as it could be, these are just steps to help us become a better practice. These are steps to help us have better client engagement. I like how you had those categorized, Jennifer. And then just I don't know. I just feel like they freeze up, especially if you've got administrative people. They're suddenly thinking they're auditing me, and you never want that feeling. So I just share that. I've seen that go both ways.
Maureen,
But I
you're dead
do
on.
look at the
Like we
task.
use Kaizen, small incremental changes,
I
right?
love that,
We don't
yeah.
even use the word change anymore. That's in the last couple of years, and I still use it. Obviously, you can hear it, but now we're using continuous improvement, which is more wordy, but the word change freaks people. I mean,
Yeah.
words matter.
Absolutely. Well, and speaking of change, Katherine, I do know, we discussed a little bit earlier, client reviews are a hot issue and I don't want to call them an issue because everybody's afraid of words. I love that we just talked about that. But this was the question. Stephen asked, I'm struggling finding a great way to get notified of upcoming client reviews. Is there another way to see this besides the client review report, or is that the best way in Redtail? So I know that this might get pretty technical with the CRM, but Katherine, how would you recommend tackling reviews in the CRM?
So this is probably not going to help answer this question directly because I do not love using the client review reminder field. I will answer really fast for you, Stephen. You can search off of that date as well, which is kind of where I'm going to lead into this, but I actually like using keywords a little bit better. I'm going to slightly change my answer in a second though and sound like I'm losing my mind here, but keywords to me is a better way to track this because in the client review reminder, it makes you fill in the first date and then gives you a reminder based on that date, but it's still a physical date. And the thing I'd always hear, and I myself have struggled with, is going, well, the likelihood of them coming back in on the 10th in 6 months is very low. Wherein I just want to know, hey, they're going to come in 2 times a year, 3 times a year, 4 times a year, once a year. Use keywords instead. So that way you could just have it where it's like January reviews, February reviews, March, April, May, so on and so forth. And then you just click those specific keywords. That is then searchable and reportable technically, where you're going to want to be proactive about that. No matter what, that's my biggest stressor at the end of the day, is that you should be proactive about this. If I'm trying to figure out who's coming in for an August review, I'm not running that August 1st. I'm running that midway through July bare minimum, so I can get my list, start to reach out to them. And then if I need to follow up with them, by the time I'm scheduled, ideally everyone's coming in August, scattered throughout the month. This can kind of work the same if you do like a surge meetings. You would just pick specific months, of course. You would still use keywords. You would just have fewer keywords to pick from. But as Jackie's kind of showing here, you're picking out those keywords. I know she's doing probably a slightly different one, but very similar concept. And you have your list. So I would do something more like this to try to stay on top of it. You can then pull in, again, different links. You can just, if you want to pick up the phone, call them, you can. Here's where I'm going to go into the deep dark web here for a second. So one of these things that I'm going to be changing, just because there's been a recent development, and I'm going to shamelessly plug an integration here. I've always been keywords on this. Recently, I've switched this to tags. And the reason I've switched these to tags of January, February, March, April, May, so on and so forth, is because I also use G reminders. G reminders just rolled out a function called the bulk sends function, which can pull the tags and automatically start scheduling, reaching out for you and following up on it. So it's taken what's maybe even me a couple of, like, I'd say like an hour a week. I now do 2 minutes. So it's incredibly efficient. And the biggest thing is, I just had a client try this out. She spent 6 hours scheduling. Now she's like, I can literally check and see everything and it's done in 30 minutes. She goes, it's nuts. I go, it's wild. It's the best thing I've seen with technology. So slight changes for the tag groups in that concept, but same execution. You're pulling a list proactively. You have that group. You can quickly interchange it if someone needs to, but you have the group nonetheless. Jackie, if you want, I did see a question in here too that was like, what in the world is a tag? I'll just answer really fast.
Can I also, before you answer that question, Catherine,
Yeah.
make that a sandwich answer, because we got the iconic question of what's more efficient, keywords or tag groups. And I'm going to let you do that one today.
Oh, it's always the iconic one. So again, keywords and tag groups, to me, they're like twins in a way. They look identical on surface, but then as you get closer, you can spot those differences. Keywords are more internal based to me. They're going to be incredibly useful when it comes to both searching and reporting. It's a big one when I come to reports to filter by specific statuses and keywords. Tag groups actually talks really well with like third-party integrations. So Moren said earlier, SnappyKraken, FMG Suites, it pulls from those tags. Like I just mentioned, G reminders pulls from that tag. So anytime you sit there and go, I'm probably going to have this talk to something down the road, go the tag groups route. If it's something where it's just that, hey, I need it to kind of answer a yes or no question strictly for myself, go the keywords route.
That's great.
Absolutely, Catherine.
Hopefully that helped.
Perfect. Okay. Whew. Moren, I'm not gonna lie, you got a couple questions followed up in here, so I'm gonna bounce back to you for a second. Moren actually asked, what was the acrostic you mentioned? She didn't catch all of it. So I know that you repeated it once, but I don't think you can repeat something too many times. So what was the acronym you mentioned?
I use Torah, but you can adjust it to work with you. And it just helps you think through. It's a great follow-up. It keeps your CRM super clean for your content. So it's topic. What was the opportunity in that conversation? You know what? They're getting ready to roll their 401k. They're going to be retiring. You know, what was the main thing that you want to make sure you cover instead of paragraphs and paragraphs of content? What is the result that you want from that? And then what's your next action step? Usually that means, you know, scheduling forward the next call. It just, you know, you can adjust it to work with you. It's just, I like those four. That's an easy acronym for me. And I find it works really well. I use it with advisors as well as with wholesalers.
Oh, excellent. Thank you, Moren. And I'm
And
curious.
Could I just add one thing to Catherine? Catherine, I love how you just explained all that. And then within that, so now you've got this great system in place. Think about what works for you. Here's a best practice I've seen from a top advisor here in the US. She does her outlook to her best clients on January 1. I just want to let you know, I want to get on the calendar with you for our quarterlies. But what she does is before she does that, Tuesdays and Thursdays are review days. Wednesday and Friday are the follow-up for those reviews. She used to do it right after, but she found she got sidetracked. So instead she gets her reviews done. The next day is the follow-up. So it's within 24 hours. Reviews, next day follow-up. And that has been a best practice. And it started with 80-20. You know, if you're offering quarterly reviews, it's got, you know, let's be realistic. You can't do it with everybody. So think through, who do you want to do quarterly? Who do you want to do twice a year? And who do you want to automate? That might be, again, tying with what Jen and Catherine said, a new role for someone on your team. It could be an email that goes out. Just let us know what's changed, you know, and making sure that the system, you're getting that information. So when you do your reviews, you stay to an hour or less, and it's very, very focused.
Wow, Maureen, that was an excellent, I almost called it a piggyback, but I didn't like that mental image it gave me in my head. So it was an excellent follow-up to what Catherine said.
But
That,
it works
yeah.
exactly, Catherine, with what you just outlined. And I think it's critical. You do what works for you, but that is a best practice I've seen from an advisor. And she automates the lower part of her book. She just doesn't do in-person reviews anymore. She does them all through email.
Absolutely. On that, Jen, I do think this is a great opportunity. Preston asked a question that I think really all of you could comment on, but from your perspective, Preston said, I'm a junior advisor who works with a senior advisor who prefers to see all of his to-do list items in Outlook versus having to open them up in Redtail. What advice might you give him in trying to convert over and encouraging that process?
Yeah. So how do you sell the buy-in of Redtail? Well, you certainly, if he can, I don't know what level of authority you have, Preston. So to be fair, it's so why do you feel that way? Is there something about the view, the look, the layout, and work through that with that senior advisor and then sell the benefit? You're always selling. I just want to be clear, whatever position you're in at a firm, sell the benefit of staying in Redtail. So why don't you come up with a couple of what you think are the benefits and then tie them to how it benefits that senior advisor? For example, if we stay in Redtail, I, as your support, will have more time to do more work for you and to offload you, and it can go from there. That's the best I can say. There's certainly a lot of techniques, but that's the first thing. Talk about, ask why, and then sell.
And then if I could piggyback on that too, Jen, because I know that the system, when it comes to activities, is pretty straightforward in how it's handled. It's got that today page. It might be worth it to explore using the dashboard as the home page or the landing page, if that's more accessible, or if you find that they like the calendar better, you can also potentially make that their landing page. And then teaching them maybe a little at a time at their comfort level, like Jen said, those additional features that could make their life easier, like filtering the categories or the types in the calendar. But I would definitely, like Jen said, I would absolutely say it's better to be slow and steady and win the race than like try to rush ahead and then get the overwhelming feeling that you should just quit. And I think that is a perfect time to merge in.
You know what, too, and this is going to go into this next topic too.
Yeah.
Visualizing. I've said this, and I thought I just learned this last year, so it's not like I'm a rocket scientist here. When you visualize something and you talk through the problem visually, the amygdala calms down. It doesn't react, which is the fear and the flight. And actually your prefrontal cortex kicks in, which is really rational. So I'm going to tell you, when you're managing up, when you're selling up, cross, or whatever, throw up a visual on the screen, on the laptop, on an iPad, whatever it is, you will get a better yes than if you verbally talk about it. Now go ahead with the clean.
No, I think that that's a perfect comment to start this section with, because Catherine, are you going to say something about
Can I say something really fast?
Please do. This is
so to kind of help even is pull your own data, because we've had this before where it's that issue of buy-in and buy-in and buy-in. And some of those benefits you get is the one thing all of us never have enough of: time. The whole benefit of using with Redtail is that it connects with that contact automatically. And it's not even just thinking in right this moment. Think about the reports you're going to want to run a week from now, 2 weeks from now, a month from now, 6 months from now, and just kind of calculate those times. So I literally had someone have like a stopwatch in front of them. how long it took them to add it into Outlook, how long it took them into Redtail, how long it took them to find it in a week from now versus a Redtail, and literally just giving that data. I find all of us really like it when it's like, oh, hey, this took me 10 seconds, that took me 20. It's an easy sell at that point too.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, what fabulous advice when it comes to processes in general, as well as catering to different learning styles, because I think that's something we also forget. So I love, thank you, ladies. That was such a great answer. Okay, let's bounce back into some of these questions. Okay, there is one I'm saving for the end, and it's Darlene's. So Darlene, if you're still here, just know that I love your question. I'm saving it for the very last one. Awesome. Okay, so I'm just going to ask all three of you ladies to potentially comment on this. Since we're talking about keeping the system clean, obviously getting data into the system is a big topic of conversation. So Nikki asked, is anyone using a tool better than RedCapture to get necessary data into Redtail? And I think that that also begs the question, what's the best way to get clean data into the system or keep your data clean in general? So Katherine, did you want to start us this time? We can move back the other direction.
Sure. So one that I commonly hear is Precise FP, and it's just because of the integration enough. And to me, it's very user-friendly, at least from what I have personally experienced. I'm also very geeky when it comes to integrations. But this also can depend on like where you're at in the process. Because if they're already clients and you're really just verifying the information that's on file, and you don't want to have like an extra fee with an integration, I understand, I'm not judging anyone. I'm a cheapskate when it comes to it. But there's the personal profile form within Redtail itself. I've also had someone basically come up with their own personal profile form where it pulls basically like a mail merge document that has the data. They just slide that across and go, hey, is this all accurate? So I think it's almost tougher. You almost have to take a step back. Where am I at? Is it more of the, hey, you're a prospect, I know nothing but your first name? I would probably lean towards an integration like something like Precise FP. If it again is something you're a client, you're just verifying it, go the cheaper route, use a personal profile. You're just really verifying, hey, have they moved? Is the phone number still accurate? Did I typo on your birthday? Is it stuff like that where it's going to be helpful for account openings? That's where I want to use that form. So again, it really just depends, but I would use what you have at your disposal for the internal and then look into something else like Precise FP for the kind of external prospecting.
Excellent. Maureen, or I'm so sorry, Jen, you're in the middle, and then it's Maureen.
No, I want Moren to answer this. She's going to have a better answer.
You know what, Catherine, I think you really addressed it. It's looking at, and again, this is where it ties back to, we're not going to call it an audit, but you're looking at how you capture that information and what you can use. And to your point, the personal profile, sometimes that's all you need. Don't make it more complicated. And the other thing I like to think about is, what information do you really want to know? Sometimes we get all this other information, all good. Clients don't like to update it. They feel overwhelmed. So make sure you've got the best information going in. It's really the most valuable to you making good financial decisions for your clients.
Perfect. Now, Jen, I will say a question came in that I think is absolutely built for you. Do you mind if I ask you this question instead?
Go right ahead, because these guys answered this one. Go.
All right. Oh, where did it go? Where's Peggy? No, it's Laura. How do I get an advisor in our advisor team to utilize workflows? They seem to be under the impression that workflows are for larger practices, not for smaller practices.
Yes. Okay. Trick with the buy-in. Build together. And yeah, you're going to hear me say it. Use Excel to start. I have so often tried to use beautiful flow charting and sticky note boards and all this fun stuff, and they don't get it. If they can work in linear, which is not ideal, build with them and start to show them. The reason that most senior people don't believe in workflows for small businesses is they don't realize all the work you're doing. They don't realize all the click steps and all the back and forth. If you show them, then they'll stop in their tracks and realize we are toggling back and forth 10 or 15 times for what I thought was a 3-step process. That's my answer.
Absolutely. Nice and simple too. Perfect. Okay. Now, since we're winding down our webinar here, I think Darlene asked a great question. what is the most underutilized tool or strategy from your perspective that successful practitioners use? So it could be a CRM tool. I would love to hear if you do have a favorite one, what it is, because that's always fun. But if there's, like you said, a strategy or a successful perspective that you see practitioners using. I know, didn't Darlene ask just an out of the park question? That's so great.
I'll go first, guys, to give you guys a second, because I always say the same thing lately. Underutilization of a team meeting. So I know you asked for a tool, but the tool is the outline for the team meeting has URL links to the things that you want to visualize and show to make quicker, educated strategy discussions, decisions. I still see that after all these years. So that's my answer. And by the way, the tool is the tools you already have.
Deep, Jen. The tools are the tools you already have. I love that. All right, Maureen.
Well, first of all, Jen, I agree with you 100%. Make that team meeting productive, have it outlined. Here's what we're going to be covering. Here's what we covered. Here's what we want. Here's our action steps. Tying into that, I just feel like the most underutilized tools are automating the communications. I see it time and time again. And Jax, we did a session probably, gosh, 2 years ago. And one of the advisors, we had a 3-part series. In between parts 1 and 2, he tried it. And he's like, I'm automated. I can't believe this just happened. And I've reached out and they're still using the system. So I feel like, look at what you can automate it. And I think Katherine and Jennifer have given great ideas. Also, Jax.
Yeah.
Is it, how you schedule your reviews? Is it, just stepping back? What's your process? Use the visual calendar. And it ties in with what Jen said. You should be using that visual with every prospect, because we know that's one of the number 1 reasons that investors are changing and bringing on a new advisor is lack of communication. So visualize it and automate wherever you can, because the best time you can spend is that face-to-face, whether it's in a Zoom, it's on a phone call, or it's in person.
Thank you, Maureen. And I think it is important to revisit the idea that, yes, you can have all the processes in Redtail that you want, but if you don't have that foundation, like you said, where you have your priorities clear of what you need to do and what you want to accomplish with your time, all of those processes will feel overwhelming and like they're almost for nothing.
Yeah.
So, yes, I think that is never a not important thing to mention, especially in a conversation like this. But Katherine?
Right, I'll bring it home. So I will double down. I'll give 2 kind of tips for the staff meetings, because Jen is not kidding. That is where I see a lot of things get missed, because you just assume things are happening versus actually knowing things are happening.
Yeah.
So use the activities by contact and the workflow task reports in your staff meetings. That literally tells you what is happening within your CRM, who's doing what, who's completed what is still outstanding. So I get those questions all the time. How do I check on productivity? It's those 2 reports, the activities by contact and the workflows task report. So those 2 will be very helpful. But when it comes to what I consider the most underutilized tool, it's going to be a little bit broad, but I'll kind of explain it, is templates in general. Everyone always assumes I'm just talking about workflows. And yes, workflows tend to be missing in databases, but that's the first thing I go to look and see is there any email templates? Do we have any note templates? Is there any activity templates? Again, there's more than just workflows, and a lot of those can go hand in hand. In my head, I always have this kind of graph where it's that, hey, I have an activity template that's telling me what to do. It could be something like a Benny change that's my responsibility to process. My boss may have given it to me, but it's that kickoff. So I get that task that has all that data that can use an automation template to launch that workflow that guides me through that process as a checklist. In that process, it might have to reach out to the contact and let them know what the status is. Well, I hate to say it, but I am a robot when it comes to this. The same verbiage happens over and over. Email template comes in. So even in that sentence, I can have an activity template with an automation template, launch a workflow template, utilize an email template. And when it's all done, have a note template with everything I've talked about, and it's all there. You've documented your whole step process. So it could have just been me all the way. And if my boss want to know, hey, what happened with this, they can just go to that contact record and see, boom, 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 all of that has happened. So to me, not utilizing all of those templates is really what hinders a lot of people.
Absolutely, Catherine. And I also want to highlight, since you brought it back up, I think you made mail merges relevant again. Because
Yeah.
I haven't talked about a mail merge. And this is nothing if you're listening and you're going, I use mail merge all the time. What are you talking about, Jack? No, I'm just saying in my trainings, I have talked about it less and less and less over the last couple years. And I love that Catherine brought up, you could essentially create a personal profile form in a mail merge and just run it in Redtail. That's genius. I'm going to start telling people that. That's fabulous. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect. I know we only have a couple more minutes here, so I do just want to take us through. Thank you to everyone who asked questions. We got through a vast majority of them. Thank you for everyone with your patience with us today. Just taking us through kind of our last couple items here, I would encourage you that, like I said, these women are clearly a wealth of knowledge. They have lots of experience in the industry. They are frequent visitors here at Redtail, and we're very proud to know them and call them strategic partners. Their contact information is here as well as mine. I do encourage that any of you, if you didn't get your questions answered or you feel like you need more personalized attention, please reach out to either myself or to Redtail Training and schedule a one-on-one with us if you are just looking for Redtail knowledge. Now, if you're looking for more of what these ladies provide, I encourage you to reach out to them too. I do want to close out today just on the faces of these wonderful women. Thank you so much for being here today. And we do have a minute, so I'm going to say, any quick closing thoughts from our panelists? I love how I opened that up. So
I'm just going to say, keep learning, keep learning, keep learning.
Yeah, ask the questions. Don't be shy. I guarantee you, I've asked some very, very stupid questions, but they've gotten me this far. So don't be afraid.
And Catherine, what's that saying? No question is stupid. So ask the questions, but pick one or two ideas from today and start to implement them. I mean, we talked about quite a few really great ways you can improve your practice and even just change it from audit to checklist. Pick one or two, start with that, then pick one or two more, maybe even go back and refresh on this session, because if you try to do everything at once, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I just want to say it one more time. Thank you so much to our wonderful panelists for being here with us today. And thank you so much to our audience and everyone who asked questions and participated in the chat. It is so delightful getting to see you all interact with each other. Once again, my name is Jack, and I will hopefully see you all again on another practice management takeover here at Redtail. But for now, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Awesome. Bye, everybody.
Yeah. Bye.
It doesn't let me end the webinar until I'm here.
Thanks so much for joining us today for this particular session. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 800-206-5030, option 3 for support, or just shoot us an email over to support@redtailtechnology.com. Thanks a lot and have a great day.